when Peter turned 50 that we should do something special for Peter. And the thing to do would be a calendar based on the idea of the old English play, which became a film called Calendar Girls. And we're not talking about the knocking shops that have grabbed that title either. But we were required to do naked photographs. Now, naked, I say advisedly, we were in our fat suits.
Yes.
All of us in our fat suits, which were flesh-coloured, and with various parts of our anatomy strategically covered. And in my case, I had a pumpkin, and I thought as the pictures were being taken that it was quite fetching to have this pumpkin covering my vitals. And then it wasn't until we actually saw the calendar I realised that it looked as if I was actually giving birth to this. It was really quite disgusting, wasn't it? Tell us about yours, Mark.
Well, I did Marilyn Monroe, the old image over the, when the train goes underneath and the skirt blows up. And I had my fat suit on, and we got just one of the makeup dressing gowns that we use, and so it actually turned out really, really good. But the funniest one, I think, was Adam Brown. Adam Brown, who is this very thin, gaunt. He plays my younger brother, Ori, and he's very thin, very gaunt, and he's a bit higher. And he got dressed up as some sort of car washing, feminine-looking, what would you call it, alien?
Roller skating,
and was bending over Peter's car like this, doing hysterical. William Kircher was a very strange one, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
No, neither do I. And but it was fun. Even but Richard got involved. They all did, didn't they? It was very funny.
Everyone,
of course, you can't get that. There was only one calendar made. We didn't. No, two. Sorry, we didn't get one.
Peter Jackson got his, obviously, and McTavish got the other one.
Yeah,
and he told me he was going to use it as a retirement fund. Should his career go belly up, he would just blackmail the rest of us.
It'll be worth It'll be worth a bloody fortune. My God. Any questions while we're here now? Because I think we've reached that time. Yeah, there's one in the front here.
You were first.
Okay. Go.
Hi. I just want to know, what was the most difficult scene to shoot and why?
The most difficult scene and to shoot, and why?
There's one scene that every one of us has got thoughts about, and that is scene 88. If you were here yesterday, you might have heard about scene 88. Scene 88 is in the first film, is it? In any event, it was set on the hills over Strathtyre in Otago there, and it went on not just for hours or days, but for weeks. And all we were doing was running, and Sir Ian, this great classical actor, was required to do nothing else than stand over there and yell at us, "Run, you fools!" And we did, for weeks and weeks, which wasn't quite so bad, except with those costumes, I lost about 10 kilograms. I don't know how much you lost.
I was already svelte and good looking by then.
And so terribly young.
Yes, that's right. Probably the most difficult scene, I think, from the perspective of comfort, was probably when we did the spiders. Even though 88 was long and we ran, and we also ran inside the studio as well from the perspective of 88. The spider scene was really, when we were actually wrapped in the cocoons, that was difficult because we were in the studio, we were dressed in our fat suits, we were dressed in all our gear. Our makeup and prosthetic artists had already been instructed to do some extra cobwebs and put the synthetic cobwebs that had been made on us. We then went into wardrobe and put the wardrobe on that we were wearing for the day on top of our fat suit. then they had already attached some of the synthetic cobwebs and to the costumes. We then went across to the studio, into the wardrobe dressing area, where we were wrapped in synthetic cobwebs there. We could still walk from there. We then went through the door into the actual studio on the set. We were put into some more synthetic cobwebs. Then we went into actually where we were filming the set, where we were to be laid down as a group, waiting to be eaten by the spiders. When we were wrapped in another, which means another synthetic cobweb, we couldn't move. So basically we could walk very carefully like this, would turn around, and then two art department people would lay us down in the positions that Peter wanted us. And these were in positions where we were on people's feet or on people's arms or laying across someone. Then the art department would come in and put about another 3 or 4 different layers of synthetic cobwebs over us. With all the lights, with all the smoke, with all the haze, with all the compost looking like Mirkwood, it was boiling. In fact, it was so hot that I know for a fact I fell asleep, even when the camera was rolling, and was shaken by someone, I can't remember who it was. But that was probably, for me, the worst of it, because I got an ear infection from the actual the bacteria in the ground. It was terrible. 3 months I had that. It was horrible. That was the worst for me. Hated it. Loathed it. Bring on 88.
They made all the webbing out of the same material our prosthetics were made out of, and sprayed it across a bath of water. And they had a frame about the size of a doorway, and we actually had to walk through the frame so that this stuff would wrap right around us. We were, in that same scene, required to be hanging upside down. And I was fascinated to know how we were going to do this, especially when we were really well bound up. In fact, Mark did manage to walk onto the set. I was put onto a little trolley that you see in the back of a truck, a wheel on. But when it came to shooting us hanging upside down, I went in and the first AD said, "Okay, this is your mark, John, yes. So just keep your feet really still." And they turned the camera upside down, and then they just shot us with a green background, and we were just required to be there and just move our top part ever so slightly, and then they just turned it back up and stuck it in the film effectively upside down.
Of course, before that, we had no idea, well, we did when you saw them, we had no idea what this was all going to look like. We had a sort of a rough idea from the sketches that we'd seen when we first were going to do the film way back at the beginning. But when we actually saw the result of the spiders, we could not believe how good the scene was. We actually saw Bilbo when he climbed up the tree through the canopy to have a look over the top of the trees. We all thought, bit of a naff shot, but when you saw it with the CGI and you saw Erebor in the distance and you saw Lake Town in the distance, unbelievable, wasn't it? We just couldn't believe it. And then he came back down, and then we were all there, and the spiders, I mean, the CGI on that, I thought, was out of this world. It was just amazing, wasn't it?
Now, you had a question down here, didn't you?
Hi, seeing as you're in a film with arguably more than 15 main characters, was it difficult to, in the limited time you each had, to make some unique choices in the portrayal of a character that's not got that many lines or time on screen, like,
Yeah, it's a very good question, because when I was cast as one of the dwarves, I reread the book and realised that Oin appears in the book in about 3 tiny sentences. So you can look at that from one of 2 ways. You can either go, oh, well, he's got bugger all to do, so I can put my feet up. Or you can do what we did, which was say, we effectively have carte blanche. So we can now fill that out. And somebody said to me once at one of these conventions, how can you say that, John? Are you saying that Tolkien didn't do the job properly? And my answer is, of course he didn't. Because he was writing a book, he wasn't making a film. And people get upset about the fact that we haven't been 100% with the film. I will question that, because what we've done is fill it out, and everything that we've done, I think you will find justification for in the appendices to the book, to a lot of Tolkien's writing. For us as individuals, we had to do that for ourselves, so that as we were being filmed, doing whatever we were doing, we had the relationships with our brothers. There were 3 brothers, Dori, I had a brother, Oin, and we worked out backstories, including, I mentioned this yesterday, the fact that Oin was an apothecary who, in the olden days, was also something of a birthing person, and was probably present at the birth of Gimli and dropped him on his head, which would account for a lot about John Rhys Davies, wouldn't it?
I think probably one of the most important things to work out, most of us who were sort of reasonably clever enough to work it out, was that what we were doing was providing I guess what you could call a nucleus, that anything could come out of, that we were in support of what was happening with the quest in regards to Richard's quest, and what Ken was doing as Balin, and also with what Bilbo was doing from the perspective of that. And what we did, and most of us adapted to that pretty quick, was realise that if we supported that, that was the way to get into the film. That I don't mean visually, but for us to be involved in it from an actor's perspective to support that. And I think that's what was one of the most important things to come out. That if you were a team player, and that was the beauty and the genius of Peter. He went around looking for people who could be team players. And most of the New Zealanders that are in the film, from the perspective of the Dwarves, I've worked with all, not just in theatre or film, but in many other genres as well. So I've known John for nearly 25 years, 30 years nearly. I've known Jed Brophy, I've known Peter Hamilton, I've known William Kircher, I've known Dino Gorman. So we've all worked together in that environment, and that really transferred itself. And the beautiful thing about that was the Angleterres, the Scots, the Irish that came to join us as Dwarves were in the same vein, and we just got on. There was no segregation of they're more important or more famous than we are. We were just all on this same quest, and we went where Richard went, and it was beautiful. It worked really well.
Yeah, it was great. Yes.